Greetings, fellow Git enthusiasts. So we have made it quite a ways in this journey to relearn Git. It's really Steve relearning Git, but hopefully you've learned a few things in the process. And I thought it would be fun to wrap up this series with two final videos. And so this is number 5. And in this episode, I am going to try and make a bunch of mistakes and fix them. So that's like kind of the entire point of this series, really. So let me advance here. So I'm not learning Git commands for my health. I don't want to learn Git commands. It's like one of those things that I don't want to be doing, but ultimately, the reason that I find it helpful is because I've used Git for years without knowing any of the commands, and the problem that will occur is when you need to fix something. You made a mistake, something didn't work right. When you need to fix something, those instructions are usually provided in terms of Git commands. And if you don't know any Git commands or know any of the Git commands that got you to where you're in trouble now, I found it is nearly impossible to follow Git commands to get you out of the trouble you're in. So I wanted to know just enough Git so that I could get myself out of Git trouble. So a few people have sent me this website over the years. Most recently, Natalie pointed me to it after I made a totally rookie, stupid mistake that I shouldn't have been making. And it is initially called ohshitgit.com. And it's when you exclaim that you made a mistake, you're like, uh-oh, how do I fix this? And it has the PG version here. Where is it there? Dangit Git.com. So that's the Ned Flanders Oakley Dokley version of ohshitgit.com is dangitgit.com. Now, the problem with this site is you need to understand enough Git commands to follow the instructions. You could blindly follow the instructions, but I'm about to show you why, even if you don't know any Git commands, or even if you know just a little, these instructions will only be of limited help, because you'll look at the output and you will realize you are in so deep that you have no idea what you're doing. And if you're smart, you're going to back off and not even attempt these instructions. The second limitation of this, related to that first point, it does usually require Git command line. So if you have never used Git at the command line, it would probably be prudent for you to not attempt any of these instructions. If you only use Git in Visual Studio by clicking pretty little icons, you will quickly be out of your depth trying to follow any of these instructions, in my humble opinion. I certainly would be. I've seen this site before. It looked like Greek to me, and I would have been a fool to try and follow any of these instructions. I just would have made my problem worse. Now that I know enough Git to follow these instructions, I now know which instructions I can try to follow and which ones I shouldn't even attempt to follow. And I will demonstrate those. And lastly, the biggest limitation with this entire website and the concepts that it tries to share with you in the veiled claim that it helps you solve problems is these are local repository fixes only. Yes, folks, I refer to them as amateur mistakes because they are a feeble attempt to make mistakes. Folks, if you're going to bring your A game, make real mistakes. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean amateur mistakes. I mean professional mistakes. I am a professional. And in addition to doing things professionally, I make professional mistakes. These are not these rookie amateur mistakes in the local repo that you can easily fix with a magical one-liner Git command. No. I make a mistake, and then I commit and push that mistake up to my remote repository so that it is etched in stone. I then make another mistake on top of that mistake. I then commit and push that. And then I do that 20 or 30 more times. And in my professional nature, I realized 6 months later that I made one or more mistakes. And it's only at that point, 30 commits later, that have all been pushed up to my remote repo, that I even realize that I made a mistake. My mistakes are so good that even I as a professional don't realize them until 6 months later. That, folks, is what a professional mistake is. Now, in my assessment, nothing on this Dangit Git website is going to even be of any help. It's like, throwing a life preserver out to someone in the middle of the ocean in the middle of a tsunami or massive storm or whatever. It's like, it's a nice gesture, but yeah, it's a Band-Aid. It's not going to fix anything. So this is my mistake. It is etched in stone, and good luck fixing that one. You kind of got to start over. You need to do some major renovation to recover from the mistakes that I make. I'm kind of proud of it, actually. So that's why I will be pointing out the limited value of these proposed fixes to mistakes, because they're pretty trivial. And invariably, when you start working with Git, someone's going to point you to this website and you'll be like, yeah, come on, step it up. So with that said, let's proceed to break some stuff. And I mean that quite literally. We are going to intentionally make mistakes and break stuff and see if we can recover. So with that, Studio 4. Okay. So here we are in VS Code. I'm using my, what is this project even called? I don't even know. Git command line, which I used last time. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's a throwaway project, a throwaway repository, and you don't care what happens to it. Preferably something with a little history, so that you can see all the noise that occurs. If you're doing this on a brand new, fresh repository, it won't be as an effective learning. So this is kind of good. This is a super messy repository. I've bunch of branches, a bunch of changes, and done all sorts of crazy things. And then make sure you do have multiple branches set up so you can kind of see different challenges that can occur. So I'm going to go into my dev branch. You don't want to be in master main, and you probably don't want to be in a feature branch because you're going to use that later. Okay, so where are we? Let's go over to Dangit Git here, pull that up, and Git is hard, messing up is easy, figuring out how to make your mistakes is impossible. Here's some bad situations I've gotten myself into. This is a rookie, I'm telling you, and how I eventually got myself out of them in plain English. Now, I don't know what kind of Git workflow these people are using, but come on, like they're doing so much right that their mistakes are trivial. So this is all in the context of local repo, right? And everything you'll see here has the caveat. If you've pushed to remote repo, good luck with that. Okay, so number one, here we go. Number one, go back in time. Now, I don't quite understand some of the context of some of these, so we're going to have to kind of make up some fake hypothetical examples. Dang it, I did something terribly wrong. Please tell me Git has a magic time machine. So it's like, I don't know what that is, where you'd realize you need to go back X steps, but okay, let's just pretend. And let me show you how useless this particular recommendation is. Git reflog. What is Git reflog? You will see a list of everything you've ever done in Git across all branches. Look at how amazing, how promising this sounds. Okay, let's give it a try. Get your popcorn ready. Git reflog. You ready for this magical solution? Wow. You will see a list of everything you've done in Git across all branches. boy, your origin slash feature one comma origin slash dev comma feature one head at to reset moving to head. That's a classic. I love that one. I remember that one fondly. It was a Tuesday afternoon, beautiful, beautiful weather. Yep. We can scroll down here to whatever. I don't know why there are a bunch of blank lines here, but there is. And then you go down to this other section, which looks extremely similar to what you see here. So if you have a PhD in Git and you can actually read this, then you might be able to figure out how to do what they're telling you to do. So let's just pretend we have some clue what is going on here. Oh, this is the checkout head 7 2C495D8. Oh, yes, that's what I was looking for. And then we skipped. Okay. So then, very interestingly, there's PowerShell commands in here. These are my actual terminal commands, git add, git commit. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then we have commit with these long, what are they called? Indexes? No, they're not indexes. They're called, what's it? It's down here. They're called git hash. I think these are git hashes. Okay. So we have indexes. I'm guessing that's what these are, these shorter hex values. And then we have hashes, which are these long values. Okay, so I learned something, fine. But it's saying git ref log, and then you just find the one before you broke everything. The one what? Okay, so you see, you need to have a base level of understanding to even rescue yourself. Like you need to be able to at least grab for the life preserver and kind of know how to swim in order to get saved. And yeah, that's the problem I have with this. So, okay, let's pretend we know what we're doing and we see we want to roll back to, I don't even know. Okay, let's say committing change that will be deleted. Let's say I want that one. So let me copy this value. Let me just go down here. Let me clear everything up. Oh, and after you do git ref log, you can't get out of this in your terminal. So hit return. What? End. I want out. Escape. Nope. Enter. Control C. Control Z. Nope. What do you have to do to get out? You have to press Q or Z. Okay, so remember that one when you're doing this. Okay, so I'm the CLS. I'm going to follow their instructions. It says git reset head at index. Git reset capital head at, and then I don't think I need the curly braces. I think I just paste this in. Fatal, ambiguous. Okay, let me try this. I thought I tested this, but maybe not. Okay, maybe that's it. Unknown switch E. Git reset head at. So this magic time machine is busted. Let's git reset. Let's research this. Now, the Git documentation, I will say, is fairly good if you can decipher 97,000 parameters. Okay, so let's see if we can find an example here. Git reset head. No? Okay, I give up. So I have no idea how to use that. If it rolled me back, I wouldn't know what index I'm choosing. So yeah, good luck with that. And if you're doing a bunch of stuff, to know exactly where you need to roll back to, that's the biggest problem. By the time I realize I have a problem, it happened already. It's not like, oops, like it's rarely like right after I send the email do I realize I had a typo. It's only after the person replies to me that I reread my message and realize I made 6 typos. I'm like, oh, okay. It looked fine when I click send. So anyway, I'm just going to skip over that because I don't even know how to use it. That would require a couple hours of me testing and trying to figure out how to use it. And it would require me to understand how to interpret git ref log. So it's a giant rabbit hole. Now, this one I could perhaps relate to. make a change after I commit. Okay, so let's give this one a try. So this I can relate to. I made a commit. It's like, okay, let me make that one change. It doesn't require like extensive recollection of what's going on. So I'm going to, this is a change I need to fix after I make my commit. So I'm going to save that, and being the fluent Git users that we are, we see this is listed under changers in VS Code. So we know that we can use the Git Add command, and there are a couple variations of this I've learned. I previously have covered Git Add star that says throw everything into staging except, I've learned, except for files that begin with period. I don't quite know the background of this variant, but I'm assuming it's for things like .gitignore and other dot files. And so Git Add star will stage all files except for those files that begin with a period. Now, if you want to stage everything, including dot files, subdirectories, the whole shebang, you can do Git Add period. And that is like, no, I really, really, really mean everything. But in this case, we're fine with Git Add star. You could also do Git Add file name.al case sensitive in order to Git Add that file. So let's just do that. And you'll notice our file goes from changes to staged. Great. And now in order to test this mistake, we need to actually commit it. So let's do git commit -m for our message. And so committing a mistake that I'll fix next. Okay, so we have committed that change. Great. So now that we've committed it, that's our mistake. Oops, I committed and immediately realized I need to make one small change. Okay, so it says go ahead and make your change. Okay, I'm going to go over my file name. I'll say this is the change that I needed to make. I'm going to save that. Okay, so now we see this change is ready. Now Git Add period or add star. So we can do Git Add. In this case, let's try Git Add period. Same thing in this particular case. We only have one file that was changed. So we did Git Add period. Now we need git commit --amend --no edit. I didn't look up what exactly this means, but the concept is that we are going to essentially amend our prior commit with these changes. So let's try that. Git commit amend no -edit. Edit. Okay, so it says, okay, great. It's adding the line, our change to committing a mistake that I'll fix next. One file changed. Okay. Now, I don't know how we can see that. Commit. Changes. View. Let's see. I'm just curious if we can see that commit. Okay. So we have committing a mistake that I'll fix next. And there we go. So we see that it is in our diff view here, we see both lines are showing up in our diff. And just to recap that, I'm using Git Graph extension. And once you have the Git Graph extension installed with pretty pictures, which I will get to in a future episode, we go over here to our source code page, and you should see a little Git Graph icon here with those little lines and dots. You'll click on that. It opens in a new tab and shows you your commits and your pretty picture of branches, that's my favorite part. So committing a mistake that I'll fix next, that was my commit message. Great. And I see the file names involved in that commit. So now I can just click on that file name to see the diff. Super cool. I like it. So this one I give a thumbs up. The caveat, two caveats. One is you realize the mistake you made shortly after making your commit. So it's in the last commit you made. And two, it is only in your local repo. You did not push, you did not sync. Those are two pretty big caveats to this rescue, right? It's like kind of a rescue. It's for baby amateur mistakes. Okay, so that's kind of cool. I dig it. I can relate to it. I could see that possibly happening. Personally, I think I'd just make a new commit. Like, I'm not afraid of like, oops, I need my commits to be perfect. So I'm not sure what type of dev environment or world you really need this. Like, I'll just make another commit. If it's in my feature branch and I'm doing other things, it's okay, I committed change 1. Let me make a commit to fix something I did wrong. So I'm not too proud to make that mistake. So anyway, if it's, something that's convenient, go for it. Okay, let's close all this. So that got us through that. Next up, change commit message. Super trivial. Like, I don't know what kind of commit messages people are putting in, but like, okay, this is like super low on the mistake bar. I don't quite see how this is like deserves an exclamation mark behind it. But let's give it a try. Git commit -- amend. So we're just changing our commit message. We're not actually changing our code, our files, or making any changes to the commit itself, just the message. Okay. Yes. The problem with this is it opens in an editor that I, as a user of VS Code and not of some bash shell or whatever this is, I have no idea how to use this. So I'm just going to say this. Oh, it's got all these funky editor commands, so I don't even know if I can get out of here. This is a change to my commit message. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to press enter. Now, I haven't used this type of editor since learning C++ on an X Windows terminal, which was connected to some Digital Equipment Corp server. So I don't remember these Unix commands. Let's try something like control. I don't know. So yeah. Oh, it's Vim. Knock yourself out, folks. If you want to use Vim, spend a few other hours learning Vim in order to use git commit -- amend. Okay, so press enter. Oh, type QA exclamation point. Why didn't I think of that? And press enter to abandon all hope and exit. Okay, so I'm going to do that. QA exclamation point. No. QA exclamation point. Okay. Type. Oh, is it colon Q? It has to be colon QA exclamation point. I'm not literal enough. Okay. Don't do that. I do not recommend git commit amend. Like in our world, Visual Studio, that's just doesn't make any sense to me. So here's an alternative. Not only can you change the message, just undo the whole commit. How about that? Let's use that as a compromise. Let's not dance around that you made a mistake. So I found if you go to these ... go to commit, undo last commit. Let's just call it what it is. Let's not even try to fix it. And this applies to the last one too. I immediately realized I needed to make a change to my commit. Well, don't do these like crazy commands to cover up something trivial. It's like, who cares? You're on your local repo. Commit, undo last commit. That sounds cool. Okay, voila, VS Code to the rescue. Now, we can see what the output was. Output git. So it did a bunch of commands. If you really want to figure out what it did, you can try to decipher this noise. But Okay, it undid it for us. That's all we care about. Now, committing a mistake that I'll fix next. Here's my staged file. So I can unstage it, and I can go back to the file. I can go to file name and say, hey, fixing a mistake. Great. Save it, close it, go back to Git, and I can restage it and Git Add star. Great. And then I can use the UI because it pulls my commit message. Here's the corrected message. Okay. And now I can commit. Super easy. Like, again, this site, I guess, is in the context of Unix, and like, I don't buy it. So just correct your mistakes. Like, who cares? You're fixing it. Do it in, undo the commit, redo a new commit, whatever. Okay, so let's see. I don't even know where I am anymore. Okay. Committed to the master branch. I am a master. I am a professional at committing to the master branch because I typically develop, it's just me. It's just me working on one small project. I do a feature, I commit, I push, and I'm done for the day. Or I do a build, everything's fine, then I commit, push, I'm done for the day. So like for me, I have traditionally not used the master branch, have not used feature branches. I've always just developed on master main, which is not a good practice, but I do it all the time or have done it in the past. So now it says I accidentally committing something to master that should have been on a brand new branch. Now I'd say if you committed to master, you got bigger problems than this. It means you should have been on a brand new branch. Yeah, you should have never been on master. You should have been on dev. You should have been on feature or hotfix. Dev at worst, the fact that you were committed to master, you made several mistakes to get to that point, in my humble opinion, as a professional. So let's make this mistake. Let's check out master, which git checkout master. Switch to branch master. Okay, great. So that's the one way, or you can click down here and you can choose from the drop-down menu. So now we are on master. Let's make our mistake. Let's go to file name. Oh, okay. And this is our mistake on the master branch. Okay, so I've made that change. I need to commit it to master now. So we're going to go over to source control. We're going to stage our change, git add star, and then we're going to commit it. Git commit -m. This is a accidental commit to master. And we have committed the change to our local branch. Excuse me, our local repo, right? Like who, this is trivial, not professional mistakes. So local repo. Now we now know in VS Code, we could go to commit, undo last commit. So thankfully, VS Code Git commands have this undo. It's as simple as that. I would probably use this, but if you want to get fancy, you can make your life more difficult by doing this stuff. So here we go. Let's move this up and let's try their technique. Create a new branch from the current state of Git branch. You could do it this way. I would argue there's an easier way. Okay, so let's say Git branch my mistake. Now, Git branch name will create a new branch, but it will not switch to that branch. If you do Git checkout and new branch name, that will actually create the branch and check out that branch. We don't want to check out or switch to the branch yet. We just want to create the branch. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes here. It's pretty fancy. I'm impressed, but not for a good reason, because I don't know how it's doing this hocus pocus abracadabra stuff. So watch this. So let's go to our file and let's have it open. So you notice this is our mistake on the master branch. We can see this code. I'm going to say git reset capital head tilde dash dash hard. Now, if you know what that means and exactly what you're doing here, you must know Git fairly well. And this would all make sense, but I would still argue there's an easier way to solve this. Now, if you don't know exactly what this means, I would kind of argue that you probably shouldn't be doing this on your own. You need professional advice, right? But let's give it a try and watch the file above, how it says this is our mistake, right? Poof, it just undid our change. So on one hand, I'm thinking our changes just disappeared. What's going on? But the point is, this should have been on a new branch. But watch this, it gets better. This is serious hocus pocus here. Git checkout and some new branch name. Now, I've already forgotten what my branch was. My mistake. Okay, git checkout my mistake. Okay, so we created my mistake. Now we're checking out. But we're in master, and you notice I have no changes up here to my file. But watch this. Somehow, it removed our changes, stored them somewhere, presumably a stash, which we'll see later. I don't know. And then it switched our branches and then somehow knew it needed to pop that back from the stash or wherever, third, fourth dimension that put it, and put it back on this new branch. Impressive. But I don't understand what just happened. So I will never, ever, ever use this personally. So I think this is terrible advice for anyone who isn't a Git expert already. If you're a Git expert, knock yourself out. I would say undo my commit and just fix it, okay? Anyway, it is an alternative. Again, note, this does not work if you have already pushed the commit to a public shared branch. I'm a professional, folks. These rules do not apply to me. These are for amateurs. So we have our change on this new branch. I'm going to save it. I can close it, go to my source control. Ooh, it doesn't even show up as a change. Look at that. So it looks like it moved the commit, not the changes. It moved the commit over to our new branch. So behind the scenes, there's all sorts of crazy pointers. And so there was a commit already there. It changed the pointer from master to my mistake branch. I think that's what happened. So let's go to our source control, look at Git graph. I'm really liking this. And you notice that, yep, there it is. It simply moved the pointer of our commit from my master branch to my mistake branch, and everything transported along with it. So that's how it did it. It didn't use stash or stash pop or anything like that. Fascinating. Okay, so now I kind of understand what it's doing. Do I like it? Not really. I'd rather just undo my commit. Like, again, I'm not proud enough to care. I don't have, I'm not embarrassed. I made a mistake. Okay, so that was undoing a commit to master that should have been on a new branch, okay? Don't commit to master. Don't dev on master. Use a dev branch. Use a feature branch. My lesson is whenever I start something new, always create a new branch. You don't have to go crazy, but at least be reasonable with new set of functionality. It'll just save you some headaches based on my experience. Okay, this is a more generic version, and I accidentally committed to the wrong branch. Now, how is this different from committing to master and wanting it to be on a different branch? I'm not quite sure, other than the one difference is new branch, brand new branch. So here it's like I committed to branch A that already exists, and it should have been on B that already exists. Okay, this is a little simpler scenario. So I can relate to this. So let's say that I was reviewing my coworker's code on feature 1. And actually, let's do git checkout feature 2. Okay, so I'm going to create a branch called feature 2 just so that I have two branches, feature 1 and feature 2 here, right? Let's say I was reviewing my buddy's code on feature 1 and I started to make some changes. So I'm now on feature 1. And so let's just do this via command line, git checkout feature 1. Okay, already on feature 1, of course. So now I'm going to go to feature 1, and this is where my buddy was making changes. So I'm like, Steve's making changes like crazy on feature 1. Okay, so now I commit to this branch. I make changes, I commit. So let's go back over to our source control and let's commit. So we're going to stage git add star and git commit -m changes on feature 1. Okay, so we have now committed to our local repository only to the feature 1 branch, and I say, oops, I just committed on my buddy's feature 1 branch. I don't want to do that. That really should have been feature 2. So this is a cool trick that it points out a feature you should know. It is available via the UI, but let's pretend we're just going to use Git. Okay, so oops, let's clear. Okay, so I am going to follow these instructions. Git reset head tilde -- soft. I haven't looked this up, but it's saying undo the last commit, but leave the changes available. And you'll see what happens here in our source control panel. So it appears to kind of undo the commit. And the difference between the full undo is it's leaving the stages, the changes staged. That's kind of a trivial distinction to me. It's like whether it's staged or back in changes, like whatever, that's pretty trivial. But if you know those changes are ready to commit and you don't need to make any changes to the code, that's fine. It just leaves them in stage. So kind of handy. So it's kind of undoing that pointer to the commit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stash these changes. And stash is a really cool feature of Git that I was unable to use in VS Code because I think it only got added with I was unable to use in Visual Studio because it only got added in Visual Studio 2019, I think, or a service pack of 2019. So I was never able to use it, and I envied people who could. So we're going to use Git Stash. And you'll notice it just undid our change. So it literally undid the change to the file. It rolled it back and the file isn't changed anymore. It kind of did a Control X to our code and put it off into a buffer somewhere. Now I haven't looked to see if you can have multiple buffers stored in Stash or if it's just one, kind of like clipboard. Now if we go back to our file here, file name, our changes aren't there anymore. So it's in Stash right now. So now let's do git checkout name of correct branch. And we're going to switch to feature 2. Great. Now we're not in our buddy's branch anymore. Now we're in feature 2 where we should have been all along, minding our own business. Now we're going to pull back the code we stashed. Git stash pop. Super cool feature. I love it. I highly recommend Git Stash. Not for this reason, but this is a common scenario. You made changes on branch 1, you really wanted to do on branch 2. Now, you can do this without having committed, right? So here I made changes in feature 2. Let me save this file. I can switch over to feature 1. And let's see. It says on branch feature 2 changes. Okay, so I think it's complaining. It's like not letting me switch. Okay, I would have thought if we switch to feature 1, our code would disappear, our changes. Kind of surprised. That's weird. So anyway, let's commit this and let's investigate this further. So let's go back to feature 2. And now that we're on the right branch, let's commit this. So we can say, we need to stage our changes again. So let's do Git Add. I'm going to do Git Add star. And now we can do Git commit -m commit to feature 2. Okay, so now we've committed the changes to feature 2. Okay, so now I'm going to make some changes to feature 2. I'm going to save. Now, let's say, oh, I really meant to make these changes on feature 1, but I haven't staged them, I haven't committed them. I want to do git checkout feature 1 to switch to the feature 1 branch. Error. Your local changes the following files would be overwritten by checkout file name AL. Please commit your changes or stash them before you switch branches. Now, this may have been displayed before, but I didn't see it in the noise. So this is great. So this is a great scenario. You are working on feature 2. You're like, oops, I really wanted to be working on feature 1. It's not about staging or committing. It's like, oh, I was working on the wrong branch. This is what Stash is great for. Git Stash. It stashes the changes since your last commit. Now you can switch branches. Git checkout feature 1. Now you do git stash pop, and there you go. Now, interestingly, it pulled a bunch of changes. So there may be something else going on here that I don't quite understand because it includes a bunch of this other stuff. So let's just do this. Let's save this and let's commit. So we have merge changes. So I'm going to git add star. And you'll notice that file was under merge changes. And when I add it to stage it, it went to stage changes. So a little bit of, dynamic change categories going on here in VS Code. Okay, so now we're going to git commit. Commit changes to feature 1. Okay, so now we're committed to feature 1. Now what if I go back to feature 2, git checkout feature 2, and now I do git stash pop? What's going to be in there? Whoa. That is interesting. It saved it from this branch. Now, let me undo that. Can you do a git stash undo, pop undo? Git stash pop undo. Undo git stash pop results in merge conflict. Okay, how do I do a... So here's the problem. It's like, how do you undo a git stash pop? So you got to be careful with this stuff. It's like you can get into trouble without even realizing it. Undo. I don't know. List show pop drop. What is drop? Push? Git stash push. List the... Oh, you can have multiple stash entries. Show, pop, remove a single stash state. Oh, so I could do multiple pops. Oh. Oh, please commit your changes. Okay, so you got to commit them before you do it multiple times. Clear, remove all the stash entries. Drop, create. So there's no undo. So let me do Control Z here. Save the file name. Git stash pop. Whoa, so it's got a stacked history in Git Stash. So I may not have used some of these. And yeah, so you got to be careful as to knowing where you're at in your Git Stash pile. Pop latest stash, drop stash. So I don't know how you can, you can't view it through VS Code. So let's do Git Stash list. Git Stash list. Okay, so you can see your list of stashes. So now I'm going to say stash this change. and I'm going to do Git Stash. Oh, needs merge. Okay, so that was something that that article said. When you undo a Git Stash pop, it leads to a merge. So yeah. So it starts to get really complex really quick. It might seem simple on the surface, but few things are actually simple with Git. So let me just commit this, save all and commit. Okay. Okay. So anyway, that is a rabbit hole. Okay. So that was committing to the wrong branch using git stash pop. Okay. So what is up next? View changes to staged files. Trivial. And the context is that apparently there's this command called Git Diff. And okay, maybe you would do this. In VS Code, I don't think there's any good reason to do this personally, but maybe if you're just used to the command line. So let's do Git Diff. Okay. Oh, first I need to make some changes. So let me make some changes. So this is a diff. Save that. And now let's close this. You can see this is a change. So I think the point of the question is, if I type git diff here, it attempts to show me the diff. And I find this, like, if you like this, then Git is your kind of tool. If you do not like this, then maybe you shouldn't be playing with Git. So we see git diff blah index and stuff, file name, minuses and pluses and commas, and there's this, and then there's stash this change, minuses, pluses, this is a diff. I recognize this. I don't recognize much else. It kind of looks familiar. This to me is pretty cryptic. So whatever. So now git diff works. Now what if we stage our change? Git add star. Okay, now that our file is staged, if we do a git diff, nothing is here. And the point of this question is, once you stage changes, git diff doesn't show the changes. You have to do git diff stage, stage. Makes sense. Okay, so it's just differentiating between unstaged changes and staged changes. I'm never going to use git diff, just like I'm never going to use, what was that up here? Git ref log. If I ever have to use those tools, I am in deep, deep trouble and need to ask for professional help. Okay, so that was the point there. Let's just commit this with git commit -m, commit my staged change. Okay. Okay, next up. Number 7, undo multiple commits. Oh boy. If you have the memory that you know which commit you need to jump back to in history, then I would think you would remember to not make the mistakes in the first place or find a better way to fix them. Let me just make my point for me. Okay, so let's clear. This involves a command called Git Log, which if you liked Git ref log, you're going to love Git Log, because check this one out. Git Log. It is a thing of beauty. You have your indexes here, you have your hashes here, and I don't quite know the difference between ref log and log. It doesn't really matter to me. This is just like really, you really probably, if you're having to copy hashes, like, I think you're in trouble and you probably shouldn't be there. It's like when you've disassembled your car to the point where you can't put it back together and you need to have it towed to the mechanic. Just recognize that mistake before you get to the tow truck stage and just, admit defeat and get an expert or find a better approach. So let's pretend we knew what we were doing. And so this is initial commit. So I'm going to guess this is way back in history. So added feature 1 update. So this appears to be reverse chronological, most recent to oldest, or whatever that is. Yeah, reverse chronological. So commit my stage change. Okay, that looks like my last commit. So, okay, I'm kind of deciphering this here. These are our hashes. And that was my latest one. That was the prior one. So let's go down the stack. Now, if I'm going to go back in time here, I'm going to guess I'm going to lose all these changes. Let's just see what happens. I'm going to copy this hash, and I'm going to pretend I know what I'm doing. Oh, again, you have to press Q to get out of this, just like reflog. So I'm going to do git revert and paste in my hash. Now, if you know what's going to happen, boy, you are good. So let's watch what happens to my file. This is a diff, okay? Interesting. So kind of cool, kind of scary. It rolled back my commit, and it is saying, okay, I'm going to roll back all this stuff so you can choose what to commit out of all these changes. Well, this is my local repo, so in theory, I guess I shouldn't have changes from other people, hopefully. So these should just be my bad code that I made. Okay, so now I can revert. It will create a new commit that undoes that commit, follow prompts to edit the commit message, and just save the commit. Okay, so it rolls back the commit showing all your changes apparently. Okay, so now I can undo this, I guess. So I can accept both changes. Okay, merge changes. Okay, so I think I'm back to where I wanted to be. Now it does provide, at least in Visual Studio, its VS Code is picking up this commit message to reverse it, which is probably a good idea. So I'm just going to use this to say, fixed my mistake from 5 commits ago, which no one knows what that means. All good now. Okay, so now I'm going to just stage this from here and click the commit button so that I can use that message. Okay, so I'd say you probably shouldn't use this if you're having to get this guidance. You should know what to do. Okay, so that one was kind of like, okay. Number 8, undo changes to a file. Okay, so let's try this. Once again, we're in Git Log. Okay, so we now kind of know this is reverse chronological. What if I want to undo the undo commit that I just did? That's very recursive there. Oh, I need to wrap up soon. This has been going on for a while. Okay, so I'm going to, now interesting, it says commit my stage change, but I don't see my last messy commit that I just did. Oh, so there it is. Oh, it put it back at this point. Wow, that's fascinating. So you notice it didn't change my latest commit. It just changed that one hash way back in time. Okay, so let's just undo the latest one. So I want to completely undo the changes that I just committed. So I'm going to press Q to quit, and I'm going to do git checkout paste. Okay. What? Oh, before the file was changed. Okay, so that didn't work. So I need to go back more than one step. So let's go find that. So that was my last one. Now I'm going to go back to commit feature 2. Okay. And git checkout hash. Okay, previous head position is now back at this. So it rolled back. So now, in theory, I should have had the file open. Okay, so it kind of went back in time, I think. and undo change. Okay. Now it says to commit. But you wanted to undo your change. Oh, okay. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Okay. It says the old version of the file will be in your index. Okay. But it's not talking about a change, so let me just make a change. Pretend. But then I need to stage, so... Okay, so again, these require some interpretation. Git add star, git commit, new commit of undo change. Okay, so last is give up and start over. And this I've done several times because my repository was so messed up, or I was getting errors that I couldn't possibly interpret. Just so much noise in the error. And so you just copy your code, you blow away the repo, you create a new local repo, you start over. The problem is if you pushed any of this to remote repo, game over. Your remote repo is potentially messed up as well, or has bad code or whatever, and it's impossible to untangle. So I've literally had to abandon a local and remote repo, create a new one from scratch, and just give up on all the history, which in my case was fine. But like, this is one of the challenges with Git is if you make a mistake, how do you fix that mistake? Carefully is the answer. And if you're having to use the UI, your options are limited. You can undo last commit. That's probably a good one. You can use stash. That's a good one, but you got to be careful and know what's in your stash, as we learned. But your options are limited. And if you're having to resort to this web page here to fix your problems, I would kind of argue that you're in too deep. And these fixes are just dangerous enough that unless you really, really know what you're doing, you can make things worse or cause more problems than you already have. So, like, if it's just a syntax mistake, a typo, or something trivial, whatever. Undo your commit, fix it, recommit, or fix it and do a new commit. Like, don't be proud. So that was Dangit Git, the PG version, going through all those mistakes, none of which matter if you have push to your remote repo, which is how professionals like me make mistakes. And with that, I hope that was educational, entertaining, and relatable. And in my final episode on Git, I am going to try to see how pretty I can make Git graph pictures. This is pretty good, but I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, and the lines do not cross. So my goal is to see how crazy, what it takes to produce some absolutely wild and fun drawings with Git, because that is the reason why we branch. It is not to maintain code properly. It is to produce really, really cool pictures and draw lines with Git graph. So with that, oh, I wasn't even showing my screen. There we go. This is the pretty picture I was referring to with 4 colors. So this is what I'm going to try to get crazy with on purpose. Okay, with that, have a good day and go break some code. Later.